priest and yoga teacher. There was a time when if you could not sit on a cushion, you could not sit in the Zendo. But things have changed quite radically. And now it's pretty acceptable to sit in a chair, to even be lying down. The important thing is maintaining the principles of Zazen in whatever posture you're in. So I like to start by reading. But Dogen wrote Papazian. It's basically instructions in sitting, and I'm just going to read you some excerpts. The way is basically perfect and all-pervading. How could it be contingent upon practice and realization? The Dharma vehicle is free and untrammeled. What need is there for concentrated effort? Indeed, the whole body is far beyond the world's dust. Who could believe in a means to brush it clean? It is never apart from one, right where one is. What is the use of going off here and there to practice? For Zazen, a quiet room is suitable. Eat and drink moderately. Cast aside all involvements and cease all affairs. Do not think good or bad. Do not administer pros and cons. Cease all the movements of the conscious mind, the gauging of all thought and views. Have no designs on becoming a Buddha. Zazen has nothing whatever to do with sitting or lying down. The Zazen I speak of is not learning meditation. It is simply the Dharma gate of repose and bliss, the practice realization of totally culminated enlightenment. It is the manifestation of ultimate reality. Traps and snares can never reach it. Once its heart is grasped, you are like a dragon gaining the water, like a tiger taking to the mountains. For you must know that just there in Zazen, the right Dharma is manifesting itself, and that from the first dullness and distraction are struck aside. This being the case, intelligence or lack of it doesn't matter. Between the dull and the sharp-witted, there is no distinction. If you concentrate your effort single-mindedly, that in itself is negotiating the way. Practice realization is naturally undefiled. Going forward in practice is a matter of everydayness. And the closing paragraph in Fukan Zazengi. Please, honored followers of Zen, long accustomed to groping for the elephant, do not be suspicious of the true dragon. Devote your energies to a way that directly indicates the absolute. Revere the person of complete attainment who is beyond all human agency. Gain accord with the enlightenment of the Buddhas. Succeed to the legitimate lineage of the ancestors' samadhi. Constantly perform in such a manner, and you are assured of being a person such as they. Your treasure store will open of itself, and you will use it at will. Maizumi Roshi said about Zazen, the point of our practice is not to become something other than what we really are, such as a Buddha or enlightened person, but to realize or become aware of the fact that we are intrinsically, originally the way itself, free and complete. And this is, I don't know how well you can see that. This is a booklet that Darlene Cohen, with the help of Beata Chapman, compiled for alternate sitting postures. It's called the Dharma Gate of Ease and Joy, Zazen for Everybody. And I have access to these. They specified in their copyright that it was fine to copy this for personal use. So anyone who would like a copy, I'd be happy to get you one for the cost of the copy. So just let me know. So a little about Darlene Cohen. She was diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis. I believe she was in her 30s. She had been sitting maybe 7 years or so. And the onset was quite rapid. And she was in a lot of pain and she couldn't move. She was bedridden for a little while. And so a lot of her writing about alternate positions comes from having chronic pain. But I think they're still useful because, you know, based on perhaps some limitation you have, you might find an alternate posture more accommodating to your Zazen. So there are 3 areas that we look at that we consider the essence of Zazen: body alignment, stability, and dynamic tension. Alignment is the body relaxed, whether you're sitting cross-legged on a cushion or in a chair, lying down, standing, or walking. Alignment of the body provides the strength and stamina to include all that arises without preference. Every part of the body participates in Zazen. No part is excluded. Suzuki Roshi gave a short talk on Zazen. I believe it was at a session. And what he said was that you should sit with your whole body. You should feel each part of your body doing Zazen independently. Every part of your body should participate completely in Zazen. This is known as shikantaza, or just sitting. The second thing we look at is the stability, or how grounded your body is in your Zazen posture. And this is really interesting because once you find a stable posture in Zazen, you're watching the busy mind from a still body. It's like watching a movie or listening to a radio. I remember someone describing it to me as, you know, when you first start sitting, it's like there's a radio right in front of you, just totally blaring. And as you continue to sit and mature in your practice, the radio gets lower and lower. It doesn't ever go away, but at some point it just kind of feels like it's maybe out by the back door and you really can't hear it unless you pay attention. So a stable posture in Zazen fosters the experience of solidity, stillness, and integration of body and mind. It's simultaneous inclusion with no separation. The third aspect of Zazen is dynamic tension. And this is a little paradoxical. The ideal posture for Zazen is relaxed and comfortable, but it contains elements of tension. The placement of your hands, jaw, knees, the maintenance of a straight spine. The most common use of this is the cosmic mudra, which is the hand position where your right hand is palm up in your lap. Your left hand is overlapping, fingers are overlapping the right, and your thumbs are barely touching. And you keep that very light tension there. And what you'll find is that you begin to space out or get sleepy. You'll realize your thumbs aren't touching anymore, or maybe they're touching a little too much. So that is the dynamic tension that we can create in that posture. We're always looking to cultivate a dynamic tension in Zazen. And so it's seeking a balance. a balance between comfort and alertness. You don't want to be so comfortable that you fall asleep or lose the ability to make the effort to maintain your awareness of everything within and around you. You resist the impulses like scratching an itch or brushing away an insect, and you only adjust your posture when you are so uncomfortable that it becomes distracting. The balance between stability and vulnerability. Our posture and commitment to sitting, paying attention to what comes up, cultivates our stability. By paying attention to what thoughts and feelings come up, develops our vulnerability. So instead of grasping these thoughts, we must find a balance so that we are not so rigid as to be inflexible and can be open to feelings and thoughts without attachment. And frequently these aren't always pleasant. Also, we want to cultivate a balance between stillness and movement. Our practice of Zazen teaches us stillness and movement simultaneously. Our body's in a stable posture, yet we can follow the movement of our breath. The stillness allows us to observe what is moving, our thoughts, sounds, and sense impressions that are going on around us. And lastly, the balance between acceptance and effort. In Shikantaza, we accept things the way that they are. We don't try to change them. We don't tell the neighbors to be quiet or stop mowing their lawn. We accept these things as part of our sitting. At the same time, remaining alert and open requires a certain effort. Balancing acceptance and effort, we keep our body and mind fluid. Sawaki Roshi called Zazen a posture that seeks absolutely nothing. Excuse me. And so I'm going to talk about cross-legged postures. The classic being the full lotus, which I don't know anybody who can do that, or the half lotus. But we do have some illustrations. If you could, I think the first couple.
Unfortunately, Debbie,
Unfortunately,
I do not have the illustrations. Something has gone funky on the
you are
desktop.
fired. You know what? Am I a co-host?
Yeah, will be
Because I think I could put them up.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Is it possible to turn on the TV?
It is, but it is not possible to connect this computer to the TV, unfortunately.
Okay.
Okie dokie.
Hang on, let me co-host you. Boom. Now you're good.
All right. This will just take a minute.
Yeah.
Okay, here we go.
Computer.
No worries.
Now where have I gone? Okay. This first illustration. There we go. Is of the full lotus, where your feet are actually up on your thighs. This is a very challenging position. And I personally don't know anyone who actually can do this. There's also a half lotus where just one foot is up. Much more common though is the Burmese style. And that's what, when I was sitting on a cushion, I used for the most part. Where did you go? Oh, there we are. The Burmese posture is just a much more relaxed, cross-legged posture where your feet are kind of tucked up, but they're not like way up on your thighs. And then another way to sit is known as Seiza.
And Debbie, you need to push share screen again.
I know, I'm trying to.
know where.
Yeah. Here we go. This is the Seiza position. So you're kneeling and you're sitting on either a zafu that's on its side, or they also make benches that you can sit on. And this is very popular. I found that when I was at Tassel Harbor practice period, I would alternate between the Burmese position, Seiza, and then like by about the 6th day of Sesshin, I was sitting in a chair. You know, so you have to listen to your body, but you don't want to lose your edge. Okay. And so what we need to sit in a cross-legged position is a zazen, a square padded cushion, and that provides kind of like a rug. And then the zafu, the round cushion, goes on top of it. So when you're sitting on the zafu, your knees will rest on the zabuton. And that depends a lot on how flexible you are. If you're not very flexible, you're going to need a taller zafu. Or sometimes people will put extra cushions under their zafu. Or what I do, because usually my left knee will rest on the cushion, but my right knee won't. And you can put a small cushion or pillow under that knee to support it. Because if you should have fairly equal weight bearing between your bottom on the cushion and your two knees. If one of your knees is just sort of hanging there, it affects the stability of your posture. Okay, and we talked about the cosmic mudra. Your arms, a way they describe this, which I think is really funny, is that your arms should be slightly away from your body. So you want to imagine holding an egg under each armpit. And actually, I've seen people sit in different ways. Some people will rest their cosmic mudra on their lap. That's what I do. But other people will hold it up. I don't really have an opinion about what is better or worse. You do want to keep your eyes open, and that's because we want to be here now. We're not trying to go somewhere else. We're trying to be aware of what's happening now. And so you want to drop your gaze, which is not the same as dropping your chin, to the floor a few feet behind your knees. And you can relax your gaze so that your eyes are slightly unfocused. Or if you wear glasses, just taking your glasses off will do it. Okay, and I think what most of us do is chair sitting, called Isuzen. And this actually, it seems like it should be simpler, but actually it's a little more complicated because no two chairs are alike. You know, you'll likely need some kind of cushion or pillow. When Darlene sat in a chair, she had, because she was short, she had to scoot forward to the edge of the chair to get her feet on the ground. And so she ended up putting like a pillow behind her low back so that she just felt some contact. You can put a cushion under your feet if your feet don't reach. But what you're trying to do is you're trying to maintain the natural curve in your low back and your lumbar spine. Any of you that have had back problems are probably very familiar with the pelvic tilt, which if you do it lying down, you're lying with your knees bent and you use your stomach muscles to flatten your low back against the floor. what I usually do is, when I first start sitting, and this is something my teacher Tony does because he saw Suzuki Roshi do it. And he gets in position and then he just very gently sways forward and backward, side to side. And then he does the pelvic tilt, and then the extreme of that going into a very arched back. And you just kind of go back and forth until you find the middle. It's kind of like when you edit a photo on your phone, you know, and there's like the contrast thing, you're in the middle. So you can go this way or you can go that way. You're trying to find a comfortable spot. I think there's a little bit of debate as to whether you should sit back against the chair or not. The most important thing is that I think it's much easier to maintain the lumbar curve in your back, which will keep you balanced, if your hips are higher than your knees. When your knees are above your hips, your back tends to round out. And you don't feel so bad when you're doing it, but when you go to get up, you will really feel it. And it's also a position that will make you really sleepy. One of the more popular alternate positions is lying on your back. And this is tricky because you don't want to go to sleep. And there's one Sangha member, I would hear him snoring and I would just think, oh, Doug. But the trick is you have to introduce a dynamic tension to this pose. So you're lying on your back, your knees are bent and slightly touching. Your ankles are also slightly touching. This is very much like the slight touching of the thumbs in the mudra. You can also put a small cushion on your stomach and rest your arms on it. And Darlene used to just create her own mudras. She would do something like that, you know, just something where something was barely touching. The important thing is that the placement of your hands are symmetrical and consciously aligned on the pillow, and you're maintaining that. And that gives you the dynamic tension that you need. Okay, and I also want to just say a little bit about Kinhin, walking meditation. So your stance is that your feet are a little bit narrower than shoulder width. Your hand position can be Seiza, which is the thumb is in this fist, the hand is over and you hold it here. Or you can have your arms at your side, or something I've really kind of grown to like is having just holding your hands behind your back, but trying to keep that erect posture. And the walking is slow and deliberate. The heel strikes down first and you roll onto your toe. I remember asking my first teacher, you know, is it like, do we just like take a step and then take a step, or is it like a continuous thing? And I think it's kind of like Tai Chi. You know, your heel hits the ground, you roll forward. So it's like a constant movement, but it's very slow. Some people follow their breath along with their steps. And as in the sitting positions, you want to have your gaze be maybe a couple feet ahead of you. If you're walking doing Kinhin in a group, you want to keep the spacing equal between you. So you may have to adjust the speed or the length of your step. For people with back problems, or if you're doing Kinhin outside, you can go a little bit faster. That's definitely easier for people with back problems. And also just, we used to do Kinhin at Russian River Zendo. We had this wonderful garden, but it was like steps that were all terraced. And so we would do a little bit faster Kinhin, and we found that worked a lot better. Okay. And so this is a quote from Darlene's other book, Turning suffering inside out, a Zen approach to living with physical and emotional pain. Throughout all these alternative postures for meditation, the essence of the traditional meditation postures is retained. The stability of the lower body, the alignment of the spine, the focus of the mind, and the understanding that whatever waves our mind and body produce during our meditation period, they are not different from or separate from the big, wide, incomprehensible ocean itself. I remember when I first started sitting, I don't see this too much anymore, but if you were new to a Zendo, or sometimes they would just designate, like, the first Sangha meeting of the month, they would give Zazen instruction. And I don't see that too much anymore. In Tassajara, in the olden days, Suzuki Roshi had like a bamboo stick that might smack you if your posture wasn't right. Darlene was nicer than that, but she would frequently go around and just give very subtle clues like, raise your chest up, lean forward. And I found that really helpful because you can't, unless you're really connected to your body, it's very hard to kind of know where you are in space. So it really helps to get that feedback. So, anyone that would like to have me look at their posture, has any questions, I'm more than happy to do that. I remember when I first started sitting, I was not a person who could hold still, so it was really problematic. But once I finally was able to calm myself sufficiently to sit for 20 or 30 minutes, I remember the first time that it felt right. And the sensation was like taking a drink of water on a hot day when you didn't really realize you were thirsty, and that sensation of the water. And many times when I sit, not always, but many times, it just really feels like a refuge to me to be in that Zazen position. It's very calming. And I really enjoy Kinhin outdoors, like on a hiking trail or something. It's a little more challenging. But I think the important thing is that, Zazen isn't about the posture you're in. It's about your relationship to your body and your state of mind. So I'd be interested in hearing, we can break up into small groups and perhaps discuss, what it was like for you to start sitting. Was it difficult? Did you know what to do? Did somebody show you? How has that changed over time? Any things you learned that were particularly helpful, or as always, anything else? So my trusty assistant points both thumbs up. We'll break you guys on the screen into small groups, and let's see.
Will you repeat your questions, please, for us, please?
Yeah. I think it would be nice to talk about, what it was like physically when you first started sitting. Did you receive instruction? Was it helpful? Are there things you discovered yourself that were helpful? And what is it like now? Yeah, so there's, I think 1, 2, 3. There's 8 of, I don't know, you want to do groups of 3? How does that work? Yeah. Okay, so we will have about 15 to 20 minutes. So people can